Dark Bleatings, everybody! We're doing the ABCs of horror today, so I did a book version of this on Thursday, and today I'm going to be recommending a horror film beginning with each letter of the alphabet. I've done one of these before about 2 years ago, so I'll link that video in the description below if you'd like to see that. I'm not going to be repeating any of the films that I did in that video, and also the reason I got this idea to do this again is because my YouTube bestie Erik horror aficionado, did one of these videos the other day. Anyway, we're going with A Dark Song. This is an occult film. It's not your sort of typical occult film. I would say that it's much scarier, and for me, but it's a slow burn. So if you're somebody that likes a lot of quick paced action in your horror films, this might not be for you. But if you're someone who likes a really slow burn with a creepy setting that's getting increasingly creepy and nerve-wracking, then this might be for you. It's about a woman who wants to connect with somebody, or she wants to connect with something that could help her with somebody because she has suffered a loss, and it's really detailed, and I think that they actually did a lot of research about ritualistic practices like this. I personally don't believe in magic or the supernatural, but if you're someone that does believe in that kind of stuff and you know anything about these sorts of rituals, then you might really appreciate the detail here. It was really creepy, and it went in a very unexpected direction, so I wholeheartedly recommend that. That's A Dark Song. B. It's Blade, and before anyone comes at me in the comments going, well, actually, Blade is an action film, films can be more than one genre, okay? I'm having to admit to my own age. I was 14 when I was 12 when Blade came out in 1998, I think it came out, and I still think it holds up with the exception of one little bit of CGI which has not aged well, and to be honest, it didn't look good at the time either. But Blade is about a vampire human hybrid. So Blade's mother was bitten while she was very heavily pregnant with Blade, and yeah, so he has turned out to have all of the strengths of a vampire, but he can walk around in the daylight unharmed by the sun. He has a sidekick called Whistler, and he's been trying to find the vampire that killed his mother. That's been his sort of like life goal. It's Wesley Snipes doing amazing fight scenes. The fight scenes are kind of what Blade's all about. The music is a big part of it, and I watched it with my brother recently, really worried because I hadn't seen it in a long time that it wasn't going to hold up, but it has held up. It's so cool. C. The Crazies. Now, there's an original film by George A. Romero. I'm kind of, this might be blasphemy, but I'm talking about the remake starring Timothy Olyphant, because I love Timothy Olyphant, but I did think that the remake was just a bit more exciting than the original. So it's about an outbreak in a town, and it gives people the crazies, and that's basically the gist of it. There's not a whole lot more to tell apart from that. We're following two characters through the journey. There's a scene where a woman is stuck in a bed having to watch something happen that's absolutely horrific that could happen to her, and that is the stuff of nightmares for me. So that scene has stuck out as something that really scared me for years and years, and I haven't seen it in years. But I recommend watching both, but if you watch them both, I'd watch the original first, because if you watch the remake first, I think you'll find the original quite slow, whereas if you watch them in the order they were made, I think you won't suffer that same kind of problem. D is for The Descent. This is one of my favourite films, probably. This is about a group of women that go on a caving expedition, and it's one of them has suffered a really terrible tragedy, and so the group has assembled to, you know, get her out and try and resume some sort of normality and add some excitement. But the cave they're in, unbeknownst to all but one of them, is uncharted, and there might be some stuff in the cave, and it's just really good. It's it gets more tense and scary. There are really cool little ways that they feed in that maybe no one's got out, little clues, little visual clues, and what's going on in there is pretty scary. It's a really great horror film. So, E is for Eli. I won't tell you too much about it because I don't want to spoil it, but Eli is about a little boy that's got really, really severe life-threatening allergies. He seems to be, you know, allergic to the very air that he breathes sometimes, and this just all came on him all of a sudden. When he was a kid, he went from being sort of like a pretty typical kid to almost everything can kill him, and his parents have been you know, scouring the globe for treatment for him just so that he can have a semblance of a normal life. And they go to this very particular facility that promises that they have cured kids like Eli before and that they can cure him. I knew that something was up, obviously, as a horror film, but there are a few indications that things are not all well here. And it went in a direction I really wasn't expecting. I thought that it was sort of one type of horror film and it turned out to be something completely different. I love it when films like sort of pull the wool over my eyes like that. So yes, E is for Eli. F, From Dusk Till Dawn, and I don't know the average age range of most of you guys who are watching. I always tend to think that I'm talking to people in the same sort of age bracket as me, so like late 30s, 40s, maybe 50s. But if you're younger and you somehow haven't seen From Dusk Till Dawn, which is very possible because we're going back quite a bit now, like Blade, don't look it, or if you've just gone through life without ever seeing this and you don't know anything about it, trust me, you have to watch this. If you listen to nothing else that I recommend on this list, this is the one I really want you to watch. But don't look it up, don't look up anything about it before you see it. If you have somehow managed to not have this spoiled for you in any capacity, just go in completely blind. Just don't look at, not even the synopsis, like especially not the synopsis, okay? So this is about brothers who are played by George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino, and they are criminals. They rob things. They've killed people, and they're fleeing and trying to cross the border into Mexico. And they have someone that they meet up with at a bar just across the border, and that's the main thing. They've sort of taken a family hostage so that they can use their RV to get across the border. And I wish I could tell you more, but I just don't want to spoil it for you. But those who are in the know, I'm sure you'll all agree with me that the direction this film goes in is just so good. And it's the film that made everybody fall in love with a certain lady. G is for Grave Encounters. This is a found footage horror film set in a sort of like a closed down derelict mental health institution, like a hospital or like an asylum or something. And the Grave Encounters team, they're a camera crew and presenter who have a show, and they're going around debunking hauntings. Basically, they go to haunted locations and then they investigate all the spooky stuff, and then they always find the real cause, which is something not supernatural at all, like a rat or a burst pipe or faulty wiring or whatever. But they're really hoping to find ghosts until they get to this place. And I thought there were some truly creepy scenes, like scary scenes. It is a bit sort of paint by the numbers for a horror film like this, but when I saw it, I hadn't seen an abundance of found footage films yet. There were so many around the time that were coming out following the success of the Blair Witch Project that I think it depends on the order that you watched everything for what you really liked. But I really liked Grave Encounters. H is for Horns. It's based on the book by Joe Hill of the same name, starring Daniel Radcliffe. It was such a fun film. It's about this guy called Ig, who's kind of like a social pariah because the love of his life was murdered, and everyone thinks he did it, though there wasn't evidence to convict him of this crime, so he's, you know, legally he's not guilty. But that doesn't seem to matter because everybody suspects him. And he wakes up one day with, he's started growing horns, and he finds that he can influence the people around him. They for some reason, when they're in his presence, cannot just stop their true thoughts, like coming out, like they're vocalizing their true thoughts, like things people would never normally say out loud, like their darkest thoughts or their secrets that they consider dark. And they're very highly suggestible if Ig is the person telling them what they should do. So will he use those powers for evil? Where are the horns coming from, etc.? Is quite fantastical. That's something I really like about Joe Hill's writing in his stories, like the really weird kind of fantasy elements of it. But that was a really good one, and I thought Daniel Radcliffe was really good in it. Immaculate. This I say recently. I watched it months ago, but recently for me, if I watched a film, it was like 6 months ago. This is you probably heard of the sort of breaking stand-up performance by Sydney Sweeney, who is like Toni Collette for Hereditary. It's an absolute crime that she wasn't nominated for an Oscar for this part. It's like actually maddening to me that she wasn't nominated for an Oscar for this role. Who knew? But she is a young nun living in the States, and she gets transferred far, far away in a foreign land, and there's something effy going on. And it seems that once you go in there, you can't really leave, like you don't actually have the freedom to leave, and she soon finds that she is pregnant. She's a virgin. So how did that happen? Now, I thought, as I was watching it, I was enjoying it, but I thought, again, this is going to be a paint by the numbers kind of pregnancy horror, like, you know, God's, you know, they think that this is going to be a virgin birth, like the second coming or whatever. And I thought that maybe it was going to go in that direction, or like a slightly darker one, maybe it was Satan, but it really doesn't do the conventional stuff in the end. And I just thought it was a really great twist on films that the kind of subgenre that we've already seen that we like. So it took all of the great stuff, but it did something new with it. So I thought that was great. J. This is an underrated, misunderstood film, Jennifer's Body, starring Megan Fox. I think that this is getting more popular now, sort of in hindsight, years after it was made, but I think that it was misinterpreted or misunderstood or dismissed as like a silly film about a hot girl when it came out. It's about Jennifer, who becomes the victim of a ritual sacrifice when she meets this band. I think that Adam Brody's in this band, if I remember correctly. And in a panic because she thinks that she's about to get gang raped, she tells him she's a virgin. Like she tries to get out of the predicament by, I guess, trying to convince them that they're not going to have a great time with her or something, and they need a virgin for their ritual. So they're like, oh great, and obviously it goes quite awry because very important details of the ritual have not gone right, and she comes back and she's sort of this invincible, super hot killing machine with a taste for male flesh. She's kind of like a succubus, and I think it got written off as just silliness with hot girls or whatever. But I think it's really quite a scathing social commentary, and it's not. I mean, it's not not obvious about it, but I just didn't hear anyone talking about that aspect of it at the time. But it's also quite funny, and Amanda Seyfried gives a great performance in this as well. K is for Killer Clowns from Outer Space. This is an oldie but a goodie. I mean, I don't know how good you can call it objectively, but I think it's good. It's about killer clowns from outer space. They land on Earth in a giant circus tent, and they're just wreaking havoc on this town. They're going around doing crazy things like trapping people inside giant helium balloons and then carting them around. You know, they're wrapping people in candy floss. There's some glove puppet things. It's just an absolute hoot. It's just complete and utter carnage. And if you're somebody who likes extreme horror, or you like I don't know, you like this kind of I say bordering on absurd kind of types of violence, but it's funny, this is definitely a film for you. I think that Killer Clowns from Outer Space might have come out in the, I think I'm gonna say 90s, but it could have even been the 80s. It's just, I haven't seen anything else like it since it was made. L is for long legs. This was kind of a divisive film. This was a love or hate. People either thought it was really good or they thought it was really pretentious. And honestly, it is both. I like is what you would call the elevated horror category, and I do not like the term because I think it's a bit of a snobby term, but it's in that category. So that's the kind of film we're talking. So things like Suspiria and Midsummer also fit into this category. Hereditary, Immaculate, I think you'd put in the elevated horror category. But it's yeah, this is about an FBI agent who has tracked down a serial killer in a very surprising performance by Nicolas Cage, who's actually quite perfect for this role. And she's piecing things together and realizes that she is connected to this. She has an extra sense and that's helped her find him. So she's piecing together how she actually fits into all of this. And the only thing I will say is a negative about it, because it's a very slow burn, but that's kind of the thing with this category of this subgenre, is that they are slow burns, but normally they really take you somewhere very welcome in the end. So it's like worth the journey to get there. And if you just trust the film to take you there and just enjoy all of the little things, it's a great watch. I will say that I was disappointed. I think this was Oz Perkins who did The Black Coat's Daughter, and that's one of my favourite films of all time. There's quite an exposition dump near the end where I thought that all the details were just going to unravel and everything was going to get pieced together nicely in the end. But basically, a character just explains the whole thing, and I thought that was such a shame. It was almost like they ran out of time and just quickly had to cover everything in the last 10 minutes or something. But outside of that, it was quite a shame that it wasn't a perfect film for me because of that, but it's still really up there as one of my favourites of new stuff that's come out. So it didn't ruin the film for me, but I just thought it did let the film down a little bit. Speaking of, is for Midsummer. This is probably the only film that entirely takes place in the blazing sunshine, unless you got the director's cut and there's a DVD with a cut scene on it, the set in the dark. But Midsummer is about Danny, played by Florence Pugh, who suffers a really, really, really gut-wrenching tragedy, and to try and take her mind off things, she sort of invites herself, well, yeah, she kind of invites herself along on her boyfriend's trip to, I think it's is it Switzerland or Sweden? Oh shit. She invite her, in any case, her boyfriend's going on a trip. It's for educational purposes. He and his friend, PhD students, I'm not sure about the other friends, but they're PhD students, and they go traveling with a friend who's from this tiny little religious commune, and it's just for the Midsummer Festival. And so Danny goes with them, and then you quite quickly realize, like, oh, these people seem really nice, but they're not, I mean, and you know exactly what kind of a film you're in once you get there, but it's just really delightful how it unfolds. And this one has got just great rewatch quality because so much detail was put into there's a scenery, the costumes, the background, the set dressing, like all of these little details. There are new things to notice every single time. That's why there are so many fan theories about this film and so many people have made videos about it. It's so visually beautiful, and it's just really a creative masterpiece all around. Like the score's great, that all of the acting across the board's really great. Yeah, it's a wonderful horror film. We're going old school again. This is Night of the Living Dead, and this is going to be the original, not the remake. So I can never remember if it was 1968 or 69 this was made, but this was the first zombie film of its kind. And I've seen people arguing over time, like quibbling about that this wasn't the first undead zombie film, but it is. George Romero invented this type of zombie. So I always say to people who don't like running zombies, because zombies are slow shambling corpses, and that's what a zombie really is. And so running zombies, a lot of people will make the argument that running zombies, like 28 days later, they're not zombies because they're not dead, they're full of rage, or stuff like in World War Z, it's a virus, it's more like rabies than anything else. But I guess I would counter that with, until the late 60s in this film, zombies weren't undead shambling reanimated corpses. They were originally, the word zombie meant someone who was living but had been sort of mentally enslaved, usually by voodoo. Um, Unfortunately, they've kind of a lot of racist connotations. We're talking white slave masters controlling black slaves. That was really a sort of metaphor for slavery. And then from there, we moved into yeah, so it's mind control initially, mind controlled slavery for the intention of slavery, and then from there we got things like parasites hijacking bodies, making them do weird things, and then we got lots of extraterrestrial type stuff. So the zombie has taken on like a few different kinds of forms. Before it was all kind of mind control though, or like body snatching kind of stuff, until George Romero's thing, and he really did create zombies as we know and love them. So it's about a group of people that are stuck in a farmhouse, holed up, you know, trying to survive the zombie apocalypse. And it's the first of its kind. It's still one of the greatest. The historical subtext is wonderful, even though George A. Romero didn't actually intend all of the context that came out of it, that other people interpreted later. But there's a lot to read into it, and it's a fascinating film, and it's well made. It's a great zombie film. Oh, it's for the others. I think that this was early 2000s, or again, it could have been late 90s. I'm really aging myself with these videos, with this one particularly. So this is starring Nicole Kidman, and this is about a woman whose husband went off to the war, and didn't come back, and she doesn't know if he is coming back. I don't think that they received word that he was dead, or maybe they did, I don't know. But anyway, it's her and her children, and they live in this house, and there's a housekeeper and a groundskeeper there as well. And they start to experience some really scary ghostly activities. Once again, if you haven't seen this and you're interested in watching it, because there are some really chilling, frightening scenes, don't look it up before you watch it, because there's something going on in this film that is, I think that the reveal for what's actually going on, like this, we're talking sort of like, I don't want to compare it to anything because I don't want to compare it to anything because I don't want to give you any ideas about what's actually going on here, but it was so great, and it was one of the first films that did a reveal like this, and I think after that it became trendy. But it's a brilliant film. It's really great gothic horror, and I highly recommend it. Been parodied to death, those certain scenes. P, no one's seen this. P is for Pyewacket. I loved this film. I don't know how I came across it. It stars what was her name from played Andrea in The Walking Dead? Laurie Holden, and I don't remember the character name or the actress's name of the teenage girl, but this is about a daughter and mother, and the mother's divorced dad. Or has he died? I don't know, but yes, he's died, and the mum's finding it very difficult to stay in the house that they lived in together, and so she decides that they're going to move, and the teenage girl is really angry about this because she's already had an enormous shake-up in her life with her dad not being there anymore, and now she feels like her mum's just going to rip her out of everything that is still familiar to her, like her friends, her school, her room. She doesn't want to leave the house, and she doesn't have a choice, so she's sort of dragged along to do this, and the relationship between her and her mum is really contentious. And following a particularly nasty argument where some things are said that you can't take back, she storms off into the woods, and she sort of haphazardly, while angry with her mum, tries to summon something, like cast a spell that's like you know, to get at her mum. And she's kind of one of those teenagers that she's in her sort of phase with her friends where they're all into the occult and everything. And, you know, they've probably been doing spells and stuff or whatever, nothing that ever happens. So I think she does this to vent some anger and doesn't expect anything to happen. She doesn't expect it to work. But it does. Yeah, I don't know why more people aren't talking about it. It's a gem of a horror film. Q is for Quarantine. This is the American remake of Wreck, which I also recommend. I would say Wreck is better because it's the OG, but if you're someone who struggles with reading subtitles along, because like I wouldn't watch a dubbed version because I don't think it quite got it right. But if you're someone that struggles with subtitles, this isn't a very good film to go in on subtitles with, Wreck, because it's handycam, like found footage, and it's really fast paced, so there's a lot going on. And I think that's one thing I will say. I normally favour the originals, and I do favour Wreck, but I'm a really fast reader with subtitles. Like, I'm not bothered by that at all. But yeah, you might struggle if you're somebody that does have any sort of issue with that. And Quarantine, the American remake, is almost a shot for shot remake of the original, so it's kind of probably the closest remake I've seen outside of The Grudge or something. And it's about sort of like a this is she a journalist? Yeah, I guess she's a journalist. She goes out late at night and she's making documentaries about people with like those late night jobs. And this one, she's following a firefighter crew, and they call to this apartment block. So she and her little team are just like messing around with the firefighters, having a laugh in the beginning, and then they get called to this building. So they follow them in, and then they get sealed inside by the government. They get quarantined, and there's a terrible scary outbreak of something here. And I would also recommend, if you watch the Quarantine sequel, it doesn't follow the original sequel, but if you watch Wreck, the Wreck 2 is a direct sequel, but it really changes the context of the first film in a really brilliant way. So if you're going to watch the original, watch Wreck 1 and 2, because 2 I was like, this is going to be more of the same, and then it really isn't. But yeah, Quarantine, very decent remake. R is for Return to Oz, the sequel to The Wizard of Oz. I can never say her first name probably. It's Fairuza Balk. She was from The Craft and American History X. The Water Boy, you might know her from. Vicky Valancourt. She's Dorothy Gale here as a kid, and this is about Dorothy in the years following her adventure to Oz. Auntie M does not believe her. No one believes her. She's been talking about Oz this whole time, and they think that she's mentally ill. They take her to an asylum for treatment, and I think they're going to electric shock therapy her. Yes, they're going to do electric shock therapy. The nurse that's looking after her is really scary. It's just cold and colourless and miserable. And those opening scenes I always forget about, but they're really horrific, like medical horror. And then this huge storm happens, and it like shuts everything down, knocks the power off, and Dorothy gets out, and she ends up in Oz again through some means. And Oz is not the same as when she left it. It's something's happened. The Yellow Brick Road is all smashed up. There are scary monsters everywhere now, and it made me really want to get my lunch from a lunch pail growing from a tree. This was quite a lot of people in my generation. This was our gateway drug into horror. It's got so much great horror in it, and I highly recommend this. S is for Salem's Lot, and I'm going to be controversial and say the remake. So I really like the original, but I think for today's audience, people who were younger than I am that didn't have the benefit of seeing this when it first came out, or you know, with a kid watching it, I think that you'll find it slow. And a bit boring in places. I watched the remake on the plane coming home from holiday, and I was really pleasantly surprised by how well they captured the atmosphere from the book and the vampires were scary. I really thought they were scary, and I think the only thing that they didn't match or excel at was the scene with Danny Glick. It's such a famous scene, and it's just nowhere near as creepy, but I thought they did a really good job with the remake. I'm surprised that more people aren't talking about it, or maybe I'm an island and everyone hates it, but I thought it was really decent. So if you're looking for a Stephen King book that's been recently remade as a film, like, and sort of like updated in how they've made it, I initially, the first half an hour, I will admit, I thought that the characters were all kind of hokey and corny, but the further in I went, the less I felt like that. So that just could have been because I was trapped on a plane, now that I think about it. T. We've got 13 ghosts for T, and the reason I'm recommending this to you is because of Matthew Lillard. I keep saying Matthew Lillard is an underrated horror genius. T is for 13 Ghosts, starring Matthew Lillard. So a family inherit a house from an uncle who has died, and when they get there, they discover that this place is sort of it's got rooms that move. It's kind of like a Rubik's Cube. It's all glass. There's weird symbols everywhere, and like they think this house is amazing. And then Matthew Lillard, who's kind of like some sort of like ghost expert or ghost hunter or something, turns up, and they're like, he's like, you need to get out of the house. And then the house changes and they get trapped inside it, and there are these 13 ghosts. And so basically the eccentric rich uncle has been trapping ghosts inside the house, and they start getting out. It is silly. It's pretty silly. It's not something I would take super seriously, but there are some genuinely like scary scenes, like things. This is kind of like things are screaming at you kind of horror film. Some of the design for the ghosts, some of the ghosts is really disturbing and unsettling, and then some of the other ghosts like quite clearly look like they're made of rubber, or like the prosthetics look like prosthetics, unfortunately. So there's good and bad in it, but I will say that Matthew Lillard's performance alone makes this film worth a watch. Oh, he's just so good. Wow, I just realised I thought I'd put like all modern films on this outside of Night of the Living Dead. I just realised how we're going back, 30 years with quite a lot of these. Urban Legend from 1998. I forgot all about this film until I saw that a remake has been announced, and then I remembered. So Urban Legend is a film about urban legends, like if you eat Pop Rocks and Coke, they'll fizz and you'll die, or something like that. And so it's a film where all of these urban legends seem to be coming true all of a sudden around this one central group of characters. Again, I wouldn't take it too super seriously, but it's a lot of fun. It's one of those kind of like, you start with a group and you wonder what order they're going to get killed in, and if any of them are responsible for what's going on, that kind of stuff. But that was from 1998, I realised, with horror. Okay, so this next one, we're going back probably 15-20 years on this one too. So it's Vacancy, starring Kate Beckinsale. This is about a couple that I think that they break down and they just have to stay in the nearest motel, and there's something really wrong with the motel. They keep thinking that there are people in their room, but there's no way to get into the room, and things like that. I think people probably were calling this like a thriller, but I would firmly put this in the horror category. I don't have too much to say about it though, because I can't, all of the really good things are things that would spoil it, so I can't really talk about it. But yes, if you enjoy films about people like trapped on location somewhere, trying to fight their way out to survival, then you probably would like this. Wobble You. This is the oldest film on the list, and like I was saying earlier, it's about your OG zombie. It's White Zombie, so this was made in the 20s. It was the first ever zombie film, and this is about a white woman who falls under the zombie spell of a voodoo master who likes her. And I'm not recommending this to you because I think that this is going to be a really thrilling watch or anything, but if you're interested in cinema, the history of zombie cinema, or you know, just sort of like culturally speaking, there's quite a lot in this to look back on, like the attitudes of the time it was made and everything. It is fascinating. It's just a fascinating piece of cinema. If you're a film buff and you're interested in, you know, lighting choices and camera techniques and stuff as well, you might also really enjoy this. This is more of a piece of history to me than a film. Oh, sounded really pretentious then, didn't I? Okay, so let's move on to X. And I got nothing because I promised I wouldn't repeat anything I put on my last list or on Erik's list. And the only film coming to mind is X, which I recommended last time. I can't recommend it here, and I couldn't think of anything else. And then Y, the film version of the Yellow Wallpaper. It's, you know, if you like the book, you'll like the film. I just talked about the Yellow Wallpaper as well in my last video and the video before that, so I'm not going to talk about it again here, but it's a film adaptation of the book. And then Z. Oh, what zombie film can I do this time? I wondered. I decided to go with Zombie Hunter, starring Danny Trejo. So this is just silliness. It's silly zombie carnage with Danny Trejo hunting zombies. I'd love to know what your ABCs are. If you have a YouTube channel and you make videos, consider yourself tagged. I'd love to see what you come up with for this as well. So originally, like I said, I got this from Erik Smith, horror aficionado, who I will tag, and I will tag his video here. But yeah, if anybody else wants to join in, or even just join in the comments, especially if you have anything for X, that would be really useful for me. If you have any recommendations, so that the next time I do a list like this, I have something for every letter of the alphabet. If you haven't seen anything on this list, let me know if there's anything you're curious about, and let me know if I've covered any of your favourites, or if you would have picked something different for a different letter. These kinds of things are just always so much fun. I hope that this was alright. I will see you on tomorrow with our 50th author interview special, and then I will see you again on Thursday. Please